Hi everyone, Misilla here, Learn to Grow. I hope that you guys are enjoying your weekend. So today I'm going to take you on the August garden tour, and I'm just so glad that I finally got around to doing this for you guys, and also so excited to show you what's growing on. Also want to say thank you so much for your continued support and to all the new subscribers. And if you guys are enjoying the videos, please give them a thumbs up and share them with your family and friends. All right guys, let's go ahead and take a walk and let's see what's going on. So here is a view from our deck. And some plants in containers. So you guys, if you don't have a yard, you can grow in containers. As you can see, some tomatoes growing here. These are the micro dwarf tomatoes. Tiny Tim. Also have some sweet Italian fine peppers. Bell pepper plants. And I think I planted some squash in this pot here. Those are nasturtiums and some more squash plants. Seeds that I sowed a few days ago. Summer squash. Another bell pepper. This one I've had for over 3 years now, so I've been overwintering it. I didn't think it would make it, but as you can see, we got a couple bell peppers this year, so I plan on overwintering this again, and hopefully I can revive it so that way it'll be healthier and will be a bigger plant next season. And this one here is the tromboncino. I hope I said that correctly. Squash. So it's an Italian summer squash that was given to me by a friend on Instagram, so that was really sweet of her. Almost forgot to show you our miniature carnivorous garden. This is a fun project that you guys can do with kids. And they're pretty unique and beautiful plants, but some of these are actually native to the Northwest, I think in Washington and Oregon. From what I've learned, I got these plants locally from Predatorial Perennial, so they are here in Washington State. This is Sundew, Venus flytrap. There's a couple of flies in there. And this is Cobra Lily, and then pitcher plants. And we've seen some flies in there as well inside the pitcher plants. Look at that. So this is our front yard, and these two new beds are fairly new. My husband built them about 2 months ago, so it's a new project that I've been working on, so it's been a pretty busy season, but we wanted to be able to grow more edibles, and the backyard is pretty much shaded by the evergreen trees, so this section here gets about 6 to 7 hours of sun. And actually all of these vegetables were started from seeds in containers, and I transplanted them. But I am actually working on another video so I can show you guys how much food you can grow in a small space. So we've got some chard here, squash, some kale. There's Russian kale, lacinato kale, some onions. I've got the Swiss chards on the front, squash, and I also sowed some lettuce seeds throughout yesterday, so that will be our fall crop. And on this bed we have some flowers, so they will attract pollinators, more summer squash, and some scarlet runner beans, which are ornamental, beautiful, and of course edible. So stay tuned for this video, and I will show you the before and after. Now we're going to head towards the backyard. This is our miniature orchard and the rock garden that my husband put together 2 summers ago. So the plants or the flowers have died back. Those are lilies. Columbine, got some seeds to harvest. Juniper, I think that one's Virginia. These are all perennial plants. Black grass, iris. This section looks so beautiful in early spring and summer when everything's blooming, but it's still pretty. This is Crocosmia. It looks like there are a lot of seed pods that I can harvest. See those seeds in there? So that's a perennial plant. Such a beautiful plant and flower. The flowers attract hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies. So some nasturtiums, some random things in here. I have to weed. There's a lot of weeds growing everywhere. And this is that, oh gosh, yuzu citrus. This is the hardy citrus tree. It's still pretty small, hardy to about 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one is that thornless dwarf blackberry bush. It is called baby cakes. So we got a few blackberries on it, but it looks like a lot of them are still green. So I've had this for over 2 years now. So I planted it 2 years ago. But it's kind of flopping over, but pretty compact plant, grows to about 4 feet tall and about 3 to 4 feet around. And you guys remember our huge rhubarb plants? Give you a better look. There's another one on that side. Just want to show you how big it is. There's my hand. Look how big this leaf is. And remember guys, you only eat the stalks on the rhubarb plant. Do not eat the leaves. The leaves can make you sick. It contains oxalic acid. Here are some blueberries. These two are fairly new. These were planted about a year ago. And this one here is the Blue Jay blueberry. And I believe this one is Chippewa and Duke. Our apple trees. So unfortunately we have blossom drop when we had a late frost, but I saw a couple apples, maybe not that one. Here it is. So sadly, little apple. This is a 5-way pear tree, so it has 5 varieties grafted onto the rootstock, and unfortunately again we had blossom drop from this as well. A small flower garden here. These are called knockout roses. So pretty. It's hard to see because of the sun right now. And these are Locantemim. It's a daisy type plant. And we are going to get a lot of seeds. Be careful with these ones because they will self-seed and they'll grow like weeds. So you can just deadhead them, just remove all the buds if you don't want to save the seeds and not let them fall to the ground. But also it's a great plant and it is very, very prolific and can be divided in the fall or in early spring. All right guys, to the main garden. So let me start to the left here. This is the Himalayan honeysuckle. And I harvested a lot of the berries already. We ate some and I am saving the seeds. Oh, these are almost ready to be saved. They're drying out. So this is so delicious and such a beautiful and unique plant. Native to the Himalayas and southwest China, I believe. Tastes like toffee. Some people say it tastes like burnt caramel, but I love it and so thankful for our friends that gifted us the plant 2 years ago. And over in this box are just a mixture of a lot of stuff. So this box is in part shade. So this is where I planted lettuce throughout the summer. They were shaded by the squash plants. So they produced all summer and it looks like they're about to go to seed. These are romaine lettuce. And also this is where I started some chard from seeds and beets, and I actually transplanted the chard throughout the garden in other garden boxes, and some pole beans back over there. And over here are some fig trees in pots. We have honey fig and desert king. So there are 3 right here right now. No fruit yet. This is only our 2nd season. These were started from cuttings from my auntie and uncle's vegetable farm. So I'm going to back up a little bit so I can start on the right side now. So lots of nasturtiums. It's always great to plant flowers because they attract pollinators, but also what's great about nasturtiums is that they are edible. The leaves and the flowers are edible. And these are moringa. So can't grow moringa here all year round, so I am planning on just growing them as an annual plant, and I will be overwintering these. So that means I'm going to take them indoors for the fall and winter months, and hopefully I can keep them alive this time. But I love moringa. We used to eat them all the time in the Philippines when I was little, and we call them malunggay in the Philippines. They are such nutrient-dense, leafy green, so it's a very healthy vegetable. Over here are some rosemary. So these were started from cuttings about, I think, going on 3 years, and look how big they've gotten. Isn't that amazing? I've cut these back twice already, And look how beautiful they look. So if you cut your herbs back, they will bush out. So if you just top them off, and you can cut them back about 1/3 of the plants, they will grow more side stems and you'll end up with a bigger and bushier plant. And also plant them in full sun. Rosemary does really well in full sun. So this is that 1,000-head kale with lots of seed pods that I still have to harvest. And I'm hoping that it did not cross with the dinosaur kale. So we'll see what happens. I sowed some of those seeds in that garden box there. So we'll see what happens next year. All right, so more herbs here, guys. I got some French lavender here. I planted this from a small start last year and it's just taken off. More lavender over there. This one is Bergarten sage. It is such a beautiful variety, guys. Smells wonderful. And over in that box are some kohlrabi. This is Dahlia. This is really pretty. Look at that. And it looks like the thyme plants are getting shaded by the squash. So this is English thyme. I think it looks okay for now. And this one is that round zucchini. I actually just had to hand pollinate these because we are lacking some pollinators right now. But this is the female flower right there that I hand pollinated this morning. And also, guys, here are the purple potted pole beans. So productive. Look at this. I'm really loving this variety, guys. And we ate some last night. I made it with some bacon and caramelized onions. I'll show you how it looks like on the other side. There's a lot more bean pods inside there. So I backed up a little bit so you can see from afar. This is that Dahlia plant that I planted 2 years ago. It started out as a plant that was about 20 inches tall, and it is so tall now. It's doing so well. It's probably about 6 feet tall and full of flowers. Some snapdragons. I love snapdragons because they grow throughout the summer and they are, I think, supposed to be drought tolerant. So they're pretty easy to care for and maintain. Got some cosmos over there. And another Dahlia plant that I grew from seed 2 years ago. Couple zucchini plants here. We've been harvesting them. Remember to harvest them often when they're about 6 to 8 inches long. That way your plants will produce more fruit for you. I think there's more zucchini, baby zucchini over there as well. So here is a female flower and I missed this one this morning. I didn't pollinate it. So I'm going to show you. There's the embryonic fruit on the bottom. So that's how you know it's a female flower. The male flower grows on these stems or stalks. So I have one in my hand right now. And what I do is I just peel off the petals. And then you have that middle part with the pollen. I just rub it on the center of the flower here. So when I pollinate, I just rub it like that throughout. Try to rub the pollen off the male flower. Over in this box, we have some raspberry canes, some chard, rainbow chard that I let go to seed so we can harvest some seeds. And also there are some young chard plants on the other side, which I'll show you when I go around on the other side of the garden. Some lettuces that are bolting or flowering, so we'll also get some seeds from those. And this is jasmine, so it looks like the flowers are spent and pretty much done producing for the season, but it smells so wonderful. We also have some summer squash. I cannot remember the variety. I sow seeds everywhere, guys, but I'll be thinning these out to one plant when they get a little bigger. Okay, let's start on this side now. So I've got some jalapeno pepper plants and some bell peppers growing in 5-gallon pots with some nasturtiums. So this one is doing really well. Look at all those peppers. And this one is bell pepper. There's a small one in there, a couple small ones. And more nasturtiums. And another jalapeno pepper with some nasturtiums. This one's called, I think it's called Empress of India. Such a beautiful color. More herbs or herbs planted on the border of the garden, which extends on the other side. And as we walk through, I'll go over them. So you know how I love to grow perennial herbs, especially because you plant them once and they come back year after year. And they are so productive. Also, they attract pollinators, and of course, we use them for cooking as well as medicinal uses, but always do your own research for medicinal uses of herbs, okay? So this is lemon balm, and I let this flower because I was wanting to attract more pollinators, especially in the summer months. The bumblebees and bees, sometimes they disappear and come back later on, but if you let this flower, do not let it go to seed. So this needs to be cut back as soon as possible because lemon balm will spread like wildfire and they will grow everywhere. Made a mistake doing that one year and I was pulling them throughout the garden like weeds. This one is oregano. So I've seen a lot of honeybees on this one lately, which is great. And there's another lemon balm back there that I cut back about a month ago. This one is Patio Tomato, growing in a 10-gallon container. So still green. So this is a determinate tomato, which means it puts out one flush of fruit within a 1 to 2 week period, and it's done producing for the season. And again, remember, I don't prune the suckers, especially for small tomato varieties and determinate types, because you'll get more fruit that way. So as you can see, we have fruit throughout the plant. And we even have some baby ones in there. And over in these 22-gallon containers are some sunflowers. This is a small type. I can't remember the variety. And I also planted some pole beans with it, the purple potted pole beans. But these are toppling over, so I need to stake that. Also have some nasturtiums growing here. Stevia herb. The leaves are used as a sweetener, so these are really sweet. And some squash, and I have a volunteer tomato plant here. I don't know the variety, but it looks like it's a small one. It could be Mini Bell or even Tiny Tim from last year because I did not sow any tomato seeds in this pot. It just popped up. And that's lavender. Another tomato plant. This is Roma. And this one is the Meyer lemon tree. It's actually a miniature tree. I made it into a topiary because the lower stems died, but I have one fruit left here. The other ones were taken by the squirrels, but it looks like it is flowering again, and the flowers are so fragrant. I love it. This is the Korean cucumber, and it is the best tasting cucumber I've ever tasted. The seedlings were given to me by my aunt, so I plan on saving the seeds this year. And from reading about these cucumbers, they can get up to 12 to 14 inches long. This one got pretty long here. That's about 11 inches long right now. These ones are looking like it's starting to mature, so these are great for saving seeds from. But remember, if you want your plants to produce more fruit, it's best to harvest them often. So the more you harvest, the more fruit that your plant will produce. This is the same concept for summer squash. Well, before I forget, let me show you this petunia. Such a beautiful color, guys. It's perfect for fall. I found this at Flower World. It's a nursery and a miniature farm around the area. All right, moving on. This one is Gardenia. Not cold hardy here, so I take this indoors every fall and winter. This is sweet potato, and just growing them mainly for the edible leaves because they just don't grow here. We don't have the climate. It's not warm enough. And this is a, oh gosh, Mandarin orange seedling that my mom started from seeds 2 years ago. So, and I'm kind of shaping it into a topiary. Oops, tree. Sorry about that, guys. There's another one here. This is also Mandarin orange. This one I have not cut back yet, but the leaves smell so good. So these will have to go indoors as well because they are not cold hardy here. This one is my coffee plant that I bought last winter. Such a beautiful plant, and I need to take care of it. I need to repot it before I take it inside. And this is that double English rose. This is hibiscus that is growing from a rootstock, so pretty new plant, but it is hardy to my zone. I think it's hardy to about 10-15 degrees Fahrenheit. And over in this pot, I grew some, or planted some scarlet runner beans, and this pole is not tall enough because, as you can see, the vines are fallen over, so I might have to put another stake to support that. Such A beautiful plant and beautiful flowers and delicious edible pods. Especially when they're this young, you want to harvest the edible pods of the scarlet runner beans when they're about 2 to 4 inches long. If they get bigger than that, they get pretty tough, and you might as well just let them mature and harvest them for dried beans or seeds to plant next year. Oopsies. And the flowers attract butterflies, hummingbirds, and bees. And over on the other side are some corn plants. And another sweet potato growing in a 15-gallon fabric pot. And over here are some random plants. I have more double English primroses, and these were the spring onions or scallions that I regrew from scraps, and actually it went to seed, and then I left them on. I didn't harvest them on time, so they started to rot, but I can see some seeds in there, those black seeds in there. So plant those scraps, guys. Don't throw them away, the bottom parts of the scallions or spring onions. This one is a chocolate berry that I propagated from a cutting, and also it looks like the leaf or the fig cutting took root. Let's see, this is pretty small. See, there's some leaves on it, and when I gently pull on it, you can tell that it's rooted into the soil. So pretty fun. First time I started a fig from cutting. And these are some Jerusalem artichokes. Looks like some of it's toppling over. So this is a great root crop to grow, and they are perennials because if you leave the roots in the ground, the tubers, they will pop up year after year. Just make sure that you plant them in an area where they don't take over your garden, so in a large pot or even in their own raised beds. Otherwise, they will take over your garden if you let them. So I'm going to back up a bit here so I can show you the fruit trees that I planted in those 15-gallon fabric pots. And most likely I'll be planting them in a bigger pot because these are not going to be big enough to support their growth. This one is the extra dwarf apple tree. So this tops off at about 5 feet tall, 5.5 feet. So I'll probably plant this in a 22-gallon container. But the semi-dwarf plum tree can get up to 12, I think even 15 feet tall, but I'm going to just keep it compact and keep it in a container, and most likely I'll be planting it in a 40-gallon pot at least to support the root growth. But look how big it has gotten since I planted it. So when I planted it, it was only about right here, so it grew about another 3 feet tall. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? So an average growth for a fruit tree per quarter is about 6 inches. So this was definitely doing really well. And over here are some more fruit trees that I need to get in bigger pots and in the ground. This is a pear tree, it's a newer tree, and this is that espalier apple tree. So this is trained to grow sideways, which is great for small spaces. So I need to get this planted this fall. And over here on this freestanding bed are some herb cuttings. This is where I start new plants. These are all rosemary, and these are already rooted into the soil. So we got some new plants here, and also started some French lavender as well. So since I'm up here, I'm going to just go ahead and show you a view from here. That one is a fig tree that we were gifted from our friends. And there's the bay leaf tree. So this was started from a cutting, guys, in 2017, so 3 summers ago. Look how big it is now. It's about 4 feet tall. And another trellis full of raspberry canes. So we were just over that in that area earlier, but we'll go in there in just a moment. And just real quick, these are perennial flowers that I picked up at Fred Meyer in 1-gallon containers, and they were marked down to $5.99 about, I think, 3 weeks ago now. This is Rudbeckia. I think it's called Jewel. So pretty, look at that. Perfect for fall. Dahlia, some more Rudbeckia or Black-Eyed Susans, just different colors. And also some yarrow. I have the white yarrow on the front, but these are really pretty, so I picked those up. Dianthus. And more dahlia, and also some hibiscus over here. Oh, and this is poinsettia. This was actually gifted to me 2 years ago from one of my friends, and I just kept it alive indoors, and it is blooming again. All right, guys, let's head back to the main garden. This is oregano, rosemary, and I have sage back here. This one here is pineapple sage. This can get really big if you plant them in the ground. This one topped off are at around 6 feet, maybe taller. And they are cold hardy to my zone 8B, and survived all that snow that we got last year. It was about 20 inches of snow, but I did mulch with wood chips, about 3 to 4 inches of wood chips. In the prior years, I did not mulch and they died on me. The beautiful red flowers attract hummingbirds and butterflies, and I cannot wait to show you guys this fall. Also have some herbs in pots. This is flat leaf Italian parsley going to seed. This one is curly parsley, and that one was the cilantro that I harvested last week, the cilantro seeds. And over here is a lemon verbena. So this one needs to be mulched as well. I believe it's hardy to around zone 7 and 8. And it looks like it's about maybe to flower. Got some chives in the ground there. And remember, you can divide your chives. These were divided earlier this spring. One bunch of chives were divided into 5 bunches. So I planted them throughout the garden. And you can divide them again in the fall. As you can see, you can probably get 3 separate bunches from this. And you can plant them and or share them. This one is orange mint, and I let this go to seed because it attracts honeybees and other pollinators. There's a honeybee right there. So one thing with mint, guys, is keep it contained. It can spread in your garden and take over. I'll show you the runners. They have similar runners to strawberries, but maybe worse. Each of these runners have these tiny sprouts of the plants that will self-root into the ground, and then you get more plants that way. So it's best to keep them contained, otherwise you'll be pulling them throughout your garden, and again, it can take over. That happened to me actually. So I have it in this round clay pot, but it's actually best to plant them in a window box style container, like the rectangle one, because they spread sideways and sometimes all around, of course. But before I planted some of these herbs on the ground here, this whole area was covered with spearmint because I planted it in the ground 2 years ago. So I was pulling mint plants throughout this area all the way over there towards that fence. So make sure to keep them contained. Also have some lemon thyme over there, nasturtium, and I have chocolate mint in that window box clay pot right there. That's chocolate mint. And this one is basil. I have another lemon verbena growing in that pot behind the basil pot, and it looks like this one is flowering. Zoom out here. I've got some red veined sorrel. These are hardy to around zone 4, maybe 5, so cold hardy herb, but also it is eaten as a green, and it's got a citrus taste to it. More chives right there. And this one, these here are leeks that I started from seeds back in spring, so they're kind of growing slow for me. What's great about growing leeks is that if you leave them in the ground, they can overwinter if you don't have a very cold climate. They are actually perennials, but are grown as annuals, so they are cousins of the onion and garlic family. Over this way is that bay leaf, guys. So lots of new growth. I can actually propagate those new growth, the growth tips, but I pruned it so that way most of the foliage is on top. Beautiful plant, and I don't have to ever buy bay leaves anymore, guys. I've been just picking them off the plant whenever I use them for cooking. We mainly use it for chicken adobo and stews, so would love to know any other recipes. Just let me know, guys. This is sweet chervil or sweet cecily, and they are very prolific plants. They do well in part shade, so not in full sun. So this area here gets about maybe 4 to 5 hours of sun, and they taste similar to licorice or even anise seed, but you can eat the leaves. I believe it's got medicinal culinary uses, and also you can eat the seeds. But it's supposed to help with digestion. So it's another medicinal herb that I love growing. This was also gifted to us from our wonderful friends. And over there is a Mava plant. So this is cousin of the mallow family, which is also another edible crop or flowers. Can't remember if the leaves are edible, but I know the seeds are also edible. Okay, this one is. This is our purple tree collard that was started from cutting. There's 2 in there, and there's the merit collard. Now, unfortunately, the popcorn that I started from seeds that I mentioned before were all destroyed by the squirrels. So they sprouted, they grew to about a foot tall, and they dug up most of it. So that's too bad. But anyways, you can grow store-bought popping corn that's organic. It looks like it. I mean, I didn't obviously get any corn, but they sprouted and germinated. So I'll try this again next year and see if we get any. And this is more corn. I think this is the early variety of corn that I started separately because the initial corn I sowed in the Three Sisters garden bed that I showed you earlier, which had the purple potted beans and zucchini squash growing in it, while the first sowings of corn were all dug up by the squirrels, so I lost them. So I started some separately in this pot, but then now it's too late to put them in there because they're going to be shaded out by the other plants. So I might just actually leave this in the pot. The pot's not that big, so we'll see what happens since it's so late in the season. Raspberry canes are actually growing on the other side of this box, but I let them climb over this trellis. So those are all done for the season, but they produced from late June through mid-August. So we got raspberries for nearly about 2 months. So now back to the Scarlet Runner beans. Really loved growing this. I think I've told you that many times, but the whole plant is edible. So the young leaves are edible. The roots, which are the tubers that can be left in the ground if you have a mild climate, or you can mulch them, they'll come back and sprout new plants for you, which has happened to me in the past 2 years. So a couple of these plants are from the tubers that were left in the ground. So the tubers taste similar to taro from what I can remember when I tasted it 2 seasons ago now, I think. So besides the tubers, the leaves, the young pods are edible. The mature beans, when you cook them, obviously you want to cook the mature beans thoroughly to cook off that lectin so you don't get sick from that. And the flowers are also edible. All right, let's walk back this way. Got some rainbow chard here and some young ones that I sowed from seeds about a month ago. These leaves are huge, by the way. Very healthy. And over here, there's really not much growing. Got some weeds I gotta pull. And the onions, some of them were dug up and some of them rotted because of all the rain that we got. But I did sow some of that arugula that I harvested. The seeds I harvested last week, so I directly sowed some that day. So they are sprouting already. Arugula is great to grow. It's a fast growing crop and you can harvest it within a month. And it does really well in the cool months, so it's a great fall crop. Head back this way real quick. So on both sides of the stepping stones, we have some strawberries, also some chives that I planted from the division back in spring. I divided some more, so I have a whole bunch of them now, and also some ground cover. This is Corsican mint. It smells so good. Just rub it and it smells wonderful, guys. So this is great as a ground cover because it can block out the weeds, but also it makes your garden even smell better. Okay, towards the cucumber trellis, and then got some sage down there. Also want to show you guys, I planted some cress seeds and I let them go to seed because I wanted to save the seeds. So these are all seed pods. Cress is fairly easy to grow, guys. It is a nutrient-dense green, high in vitamin C, and great to plant in the springtime and fall. It does well in the cooler months. I also have some volunteer Russian kale. Oh, this is a weed. When I harvested the seeds or the seed pods, after cutting off the plant, a lot of the seeds fell to the ground, so they sprouted. So we have some volunteer Russian kale that's ready for our fall and winter garden, which will also overwinter and come back and produce for us next spring and early summer before they start to bolt and flower. That one's echinacea. My mom gave this to me. I don't know which variety this is, but it's got the multiple petals. Look at that. That one's pretty unique. Also known as coneflower, and you can make tea out of this. It has medicinal benefits. And again, always do your own research. Got some Petunia. This is not edible, guys, okay? That one's poisonous. And got some more chard seedlings that I sowed from seeds, I think about a month ago now. So more chard seedlings, and there's the chard again, and here that are going to seed, and there are those squash that I showed you earlier. So backing up here, raspberry trellis again, and one more view of that Three Sisters garden. It's actually this one right here. This is that box that I started about, I think that was nearly 2.5 months ago. And as you can see, if I were to plant those corn plants, they will be shaded out by the squash and the pole beans. So this is how it looks like right now, and we'll try it again next year. So let's go out this way. So there's the back side, so I can show you how it looks like from the back. All the dinosaur kale. There are some young plantings here that were started about, I think, maybe 8-10 weeks ago. And these are the more mature dinosaur kale that we planted, I think, earlier in the spring. This one is a newer blueberry plant, and just want to show you guys real quick here. This is the purple potted beans. Look how productive they are. So you gotta pick them. I gotta pick these today. I'm thinking about freezing them because we're not eating them fast enough. So pick them often and they will produce for you. Pole beans produce for about 6 to 8 weeks, unlike bush beans, which will put out a flush of fruit in a 1 to 2 week period. That's what's great about growing pole beans, is that they will keep producing for you until they get killed by frost. And these are the Egyptian walking onion. So this is a perennial onion plant, hardy, very hardy, so I believe around zone 3 or 4. So what's great about this crop is that they will also multiply. They will start to grow side shoots, but also you can propagate them by these little onion looking bulbils or bulblets. So you can use this like you would with scallions or green onions. It has a mild onion flavor. We love it. This way for you guys. There's that red auroch volunteer. I think I have 2 of them that grew from the red auroch I grew last year from the seeds falling, getting some more seed pods. Very nutrient dense green, high in antioxidants, I believe anthocyanins, since it's a red colored plant. The raspberry canes. Well, also when you're growing raspberries, make sure to remove the dead canes, which were the ones that fruited this year, like this one here. So this is a dead cane. So that's called floricane. The primal cane are the new canes, like these that grew this year, that will fruit next year. So by looking at all these new canes, that means all those canes will be producing fruit next year. So we'll have even more raspberries. So this is the last part of the garden. Sorry it took so long. I hope that this does not bore you, but I have so much to cover. So it's taking me longer than the usual garden tours. So we act with the container plants first. So we have some, let's see, bay leaf tree starts that I transplanted into the bigger containers. These are 2 and 3 gallon containers. Those are the cucumber seeds that I started about 3.5 weeks ago. And Russian kale starts. These were volunteer that I dug up throughout the garden from my previous kale plants that went to seed. And then more dinosaur kale. Young plants. Back up a little bit here. These were the summer squash and the bush beans I started, again, nearly 3.5 weeks ago with those cucumber seedlings. And over in this 30-gallon fabric pot, I actually sowed some patty pan squash seeds. One is a French variety. I cannot remember the name. It starts with a J. I'll have to look it up. And the other one, is, I believe, is that white patty pan squash. So I planted a few plants. I covered it with cardboard to keep the moisture in there because it's been so hot, so I don't have to water it as often. So I'll keep it covered for the first week. It should sprout in about 7 to 10 days. A couple of containers here. This is another Mandarin orange plant, seedling. So going on its 2nd year. And some herbs here. I've got some winter savory. This is called curry plants. I think in some cultures they use the herb to cook with, but I've also read that they're not edible, so be careful with this one. And then I've got summer savory, and The seeds were given to me by Zatar Gardens. So Moses from Zatar Gardens, he grows a lot of herbs as well. So I'm so glad that this did well. Not sure if it's a perennial for me because it might be more of a warm plant. So, but we'll see. But I think I'll grow it again next year. It smells so good. I think it's between oregano and maybe tarragon. And the winter savory smells similar, but this is good as a perennial plant. So this is hardy to my zone. Okay, got some pepper plants. I've got some Italian frying pepper plants here. And also, I think it's called Mexico Chile plants over here. There's some. There you go. Those are the Mexico Chile plants. And got some eggplant, guys. Really late on my eggplant this year because a lot of them died back, were attacked by insects, and so I cut them back, and so I pretty much had to revive them, and they finally started taking off. So got lots of flowers. And over in these fabric pots we have some scraps that I regrew. So this is that celery. Look at all those seeds, guys. Zoom in so you can see all the seeds that we'll be harvesting. So again, this is regrown from organic celery last fall, and we are getting some free seeds. It's not exciting. So if you have time to regrow some scraps, do it and get some free seeds. Just make sure they are organic. This one here is the carrot top that I planted. Actually, we planted a few of the carrot top scraps. So this is a carrot flower. I cannot remember the variety. We had some white carrot, orange, and I think even purple. So I'm not sure which one this is. Yeah, it looks like this is the white carrot top. It's like a white cream carrot. This is our littlest gardener's garden. So we planted, or she planted actually, sowed some carrots. So these are the little fingers carrots, and they have been ready, but we're just harvesting them as we need them. So these are just those small carrots. If you haven't grown them before, I encourage you to try it. They smell so good and they're so delicious and tasty. Also have some zinnia in there as well. More scraps in this container. This is where I have the scallions or spring onions, also bok choy scrap that has produced some seeds for us, and a couple of volunteer tomato plants. I don't know the variety because again, these are volunteers that sprouted, but it looks like a small variety. This might be either Mini Bell or Tiny Tim. Cleared up this bed. We had some strawberry spinach and shallots that we harvested last week. All we have left here are the tomatoes that I started from suckers about 2 months ago. I believe that one is the Bloody Butcher, and a couple of the, actually this is Sun Gold, and that might be the Patio Tomato. Another fig tree in a pot, and these are the Sun Gold tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes, remember I don't prune off the suckers, guys. It is covered with fruits. I only prune off the lower stems and lower suckers to allow ventilation and good airflow. But other than that, the suckers are left on because they will flower and set fruit for you. So for bigger varieties though, such as the beefsteak, you can prune off the suckers so that way you can revert the energy in producing those big fruits. But for cherry type, also grape tomatoes and determinate tomatoes, I don't prune off the suckers at all. Just let nature do its thing. This one is Bloody Butcher, and it produces these maybe smaller than medium-sized tomatoes. They're about 2 inches across, so they're a pretty small type. Now I'll be topping off these plants about 3 to 4 weeks before the first day of frost. That will allow the rest of the tomatoes to ripen that are still green, and will revert the energy in ripening and growing those green tomatoes. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks for tomatoes to ripen, and also from flower to fruit, it takes around the same time, 3 to 4 weeks. So it's a good idea to top them off, especially for this indeterminate tomatoes. I think it's about 7-8 feet tall now. And that way you'll have some ripe tomatoes in the fall time. More scarlet runner beans, some flower baskets with some fuchsia. This one is taro, guys. I bought some taro tubers from the store and I planted them to see what happens. So I'll be taking these indoors in the fall and winter because it is a tropical plant. So I'm so excited that this is growing for me. And this section I mainly used for growing leafy greens. So started them here in part shade where they get afternoon shade, and then I transplanted them in containers or in the rest of the garden. So some young kale plants and some lettuces. I already harvested most of the lettuces, and then I think I also have some cilantro in there, but this is just all random stuff. I also started some beets. That's a weed. And this is 1,000 head kale seedlings, and then more beets over there. I'm gonna zoom out, and over there are some potatoes that I showed you last week on the potato harvest video. So not much is happening in the greenhouse right now. I am pretty much using it to hang up the seed pods that I've been harvesting and drying. But anyways, that's how it looks like inside. So got some arugula seeds. Those are all kale. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tour, and thank you all so much for joining me today. And it went a little longer than usual, but I want to make sure to cover almost everything. So I hope that this also inspires you to grow some food, even in containers, guys. You don't have to have a big yard to grow some food, and you can start out small. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and happy gardening, and I'll see you on the next video.